Hi, Jenna.
Well, hi, Shelby. Welcome to Miss Willa's Book Club for a highly anticipated episode. Today, we are talking about A House of Flame and Shadow. I know we've had a lot of people ask about this. I think our listeners probably knew this was coming because we did all the rest of the Sarah J. Maas universe. So if you haven't seen those episodes, go back and find them. We have done all of ACOTAR and the other two Crescent City books already.
Yes.
But yeah, coming in today with House of Flame and Shadow.
Coming in hot.
Yeah.
We have literally had so many people request this on our TikTok and Instagram.
Yeah.
And here we are, finally.
I know. I'm excited to talk through it with you. I think we've done a good job of not really talking too much about it before recording this. So I think a lot of things of what you say are probably still going to be a surprise to me because we were like careful not to talk too much about it early, but it was interesting. It was a very different SJM book in my opinion.
Different. And I felt like both of us also kind of stayed off of that side of social media too.
Yeah. I took basically a month and a half break from TikTok because I was like so scared of spoiling myself by seeing something on there that I just kind of like refused to look at any book talk videos.
Yes.
I didn't know what might pop up.
Which I unfortunately did get a spoiler. We had somebody in our comments on like, it was like less than a week after it had been out.
Man, that's so rude.
I know.
I feel like the comment section is, unless the video is already a spoiler, you should never put a spoiler in the comments. That's disrespectful.
Well, it was one of our theories from Crescent City 2, and I was maybe like 10 pages into the book because we knew that we were going to kind of wait a little bit to do this to give people time to read the book and divulge and like try to find theories and think about it before we actually did an episode. And so I was really bummed that I saw that, and so I know it was quite a bummer, but I'm glad that you weren't spoiled. Did you have any spoilers for it?
No. Well, I mean, the most minor of things. I think I had texted you one time and there was something that was like going to be in 10 pages.
Yes.
And it was a theory that we had. You were like, oh yeah, this was confirmed.
And you're like,
and I was like, oh, I wasn't there yet, but that's okay.
So sorry.
It was something really minor, so it doesn't really matter. But that was it. Other than that, I did not get spoiled. I was pretty cautious. So.
That's good. That is fantastic.
Very happy about that.
So you say you have mixed feelings. What did you end up rating this book? Have you rated on Goodreads yet?
I have a temporary rating of 3.5 stars on Goodreads right now.
3.5.
And I said even in my description of it that I wanted to kind of sit on it for a minute before I gave a full review because I'm not sure if going so deep into the other books in the series made reading this book a less enjoyable experience for me.
Yeah.
Partially because the bar was set so high of what I wanted out of this book. And I knew that part going in. I knew that I was expecting a lot and I was trying to kind of like bring down my expectations a little bit. But the second piece of that is so much of this book I felt like was just confirming what we had already discussed or already considered.
Yeah.
So it didn't feel like as many of surprises for me. It felt like a lot of confirmation of what we anticipated.
And do you think that having that confirmed was less of an excitement for you?
Kind of.
Oh.
I wanted to be surprised a little bit more. I wanted more things to come out of nowhere, you know? But that's why I say I don't know if some of that is we dug so far in.
We did, yeah.
On the other ones that maybe that's like my bad. Maybe I would have had more fun not having reread ACOTAR because I feel like there were enough refreshers in this book that I could have gotten away, you know? And I should say we're talking not really spoilers right now about House of Flame and Shadow, but at this point I think probably everybody knows there is a crossover between those two books. I mean, even SJM has done that. So just sorry. But,
no, I honestly think like I didn't even think about putting a disclaimer in there about the spoilers because one, we're covering House of Flame and Shadow, so there's clearly going to be spoilers for that. But like we talked about it in Crescent City 2, and SJM has confirmed it herself.
Right.
And if you're on this episode, you've read the book, and so you know that there's crossovers.
Yeah,
so
for
sorry
sure.
if that's like not on like a bad on us for not putting a disclaimer, but I kind of felt like it was
maybe more
necessary,
self-explanatory. I just figured I'd say something.
Yeah,
I know. So anyway, so
appreciate
that's where I'm at right now. I'm hoping that after we talk about this, I might be able to bring it up to a 4.
Yeah.
And I really want that to be where my rating lands, but yeah, we'll see how I feel after this episode. What about you? What did you rate this book?
I gave it a 4. I kind of had a little bit of a hard time getting through it. So that's why it wasn't like an automatic 5, because I felt like this book was such an information dump. And I felt that way while I was reading it, and I felt that way while I was reviewing it. And while I was making notes and tabbing and everything, I was like, oh my God, we get so much information. And like, no freaking wonder it took me 6 weeks to read, because there was so much going on that I felt like I had to like take a step back and be like, whoa.
Yeah. It took me, I mean, that's the other thing. When I was reading the other SJM books,
Yeah.
at least the first time, maybe some of the second reads, I took my time a little bit more, but the first time that I read them all really fast.
Same.
I probably took a month and a half to finish this book.
Exactly.
And I could not believe that. I mean, I had been an anticipated release for what, a year and a half or something at that point.
I also was so excited for it.
Yeah. And it, again, I mean, we rated it, close to 4, whatever. So it's not like we're saying it was bad. I think I just expected more from it. It didn't feel the same as the other Crescent City books.
I agree. I completely agree with you on that. And I felt like one of the main differences, just on like a general feel for the book, there were so many point of views.
It did feel like she leveraged a lot more point of views. And I'm less of a fan of authors that switch like every page or two. I think that's part of it too. It wasn't even that there'd be a whole full chapter from one point of view and then it switched somebody else. It'd be somebody's point of view and there'd literally be a page or two of something else. And then it'd come back. And it made me get out of the story every time they switched.
Me too.
And so I think that's part of why it took me so much longer to read it.
Yes.
Because it was constantly bouncing around.
Yes. It was like, I would be really excited about somebody's point of view and then it would switch. And I'm like, okay, well, now I'm like, I have to completely switch my track and my train of thought because it's just different. And I didn't like that. I felt like that was kind of a downfall of the book, where that's a big reason it wasn't a 5-star read for me, because even if it was enjoyable, it was
hard to get through.
Yeah, it was hard to get through and it was hard to keep on track. And I don't know, it just felt different.
Yeah, I agree.
What did you think about the switch in our characters this time around?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to put a hard disclaimer here then, in case that wasn't already clear. From here on out, full House of Flame and Shadow spoiler. So this entire book, obviously the rest of the ones in the series, but like this book, I think at this point we're going to start talking about some specific details. I felt like Bryce was an entirely different woman in this book than she was in the previous books. And I didn't like it. And I don't think all of it was even, I mean, there's 2 pieces of it.
Yes.
So I think on one side, we have her being a little bit of a villain almost in some moments, which actually I can get behind. That part, I mean, it was weird.
Like when she was in Prithian?
She was in Prithian. She's got a couple moments when she's in the prison and she, like pulls the spikes up in front of Az and Nesta. I mean, we know the inner circle, but she doesn't. So I was kind of like, okay, whatever. Like this could be interesting when she unlocks the coffin of the Asteri, even though it's dumb. Again, like, okay, this keeps it interesting. Those were like surprises when she steals Truth Teller and ditches them in Prithian without that. So that side of her being a villain, I kind of liked that.
Okay.
But the second part of that was more from the writing style.
Yeah.
I think she's always been sassy, right? But SJM really pushed her being like disrespectful, sassy to everyone all the time in this book, so much that it felt so overdone.
It absolutely.
And then it was just annoying and it wasn't funny or quirky. It was just, I really didn't like that. And so that ruined Bryce for me a little bit, because I used to think that was endearing or funny, how she'd kind of play off serious situations with a little bit of that sass just to get through it herself.
Yeah.
But constantly she was doing that in this book, and I didn't like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was exactly what I was going to say. I didn't like her sassiness. It kind of just came off as like rudeness. And it kind of felt like over the entire book, like a little bit of a Throne of Glass spoiler here. So fast forward 30 seconds if you don't want that spoiler. But all of the like negative characteristics that Aelin had, so like hiding a plan from her friends and like doing everything with her own agenda, that's what I saw from Bryce. And I felt like she didn't have those like endearing moments and characteristics to kind of bring that back and bring her more to like a realistic level. And that for me, like, Bryce was not my favorite character to begin with. I really liked her in Crescent City 1, House of Earth and Blood. I didn't love her as much in Sky and Breath. And here I was just kind of like, who are you? Like, it's so different. So different. I saw, and I wish I could remember which creator it was. I think it was someone on TikTok that I saw bring up as like a potential idea. Do you think that Bryce getting more of Thea's power is in some way corrupting her, and that's part of why she's like turning into this worse version of herself? Because it's not even just, I mean, some of it is the writing, some of it is the villain, whatever, but she also maybe is getting over at the end, but is like disinterested in helping any of the Fae. She's like, yeah, you guys can figure it out. Like legitimately, and she never feels like she grows and gets past that. Yeah. Well, it's funny that you say that, because a theory that I have seen is that not only did she take Thea's power, but people have said, what if she was like, what's the word for it when somebody like takes over your body?
Possession?
Okay. So the theory that I saw on TikTok was that she was possessed by Thea.
Oh.
Yes.
Like by Thea herself.
Yes. And so when she is back in Midgard and she's like acting like this completely different person, I was like, like kind of a stretch, but like I could see it.
That's interesting for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. So that's, I guess that was a very long-winded response from me. I'm sorry. But yeah, that was what you asked about characters in this book. Are there any other specific characters that just like overarching across the book you got feelings about?
Yes. All of them.
I mean, pick one.
Second, Hunt.
Yeah.
What the actual heck? And I guess this kind of like leads into like one thing that I really didn't like about the book, which I'm sorry we're starting the episode off on like what we really didn't like, but I promise it gets better. But for Hunt, and then specifically Hunt and Bryce, I felt like throughout the entire book, he didn't seem interested. He's supposed to be all head over heels for his mate. And I just kind of felt like both of them were like, meh, that doesn't matter. And they haven't been together that long. And so that to me was just like, this seems so different.
I did not care about Bryce and Hunt's relationship at all.
I didn't
Which,
either.
Considering they're supposed to be mates and all this jazz, I don't know if it's just I didn't feel it from the writing, or if the writing was intentional in a way that we should feel that way as a reader. And I want to hope that that's the case, that it's more, she intended for it to be that way in the same way she intended for it to be that way with Tamlin, that we were supposed to feel a little weird, So I'm hoping that's the case with it. But I kind of don't think it is. I kind of think they are meant to be mates, and they just
doesn't matter.
I just felt like Hunt is a little bitch in this book.
Oh my God, yeah. Me too.
He's such a little baby, and that's mean of me to say. Obviously, if I was in that situation, I would do way worse than he did. I get that, and I understand he's going through trauma and whatever, but at the end of the day, it's a fantasy book, and I expect him to be top tier and get over himself.
Absolutely.
And like, especially when he freezes in front of the kings, the Autumn King and the Avalon King. And he literally says that he froze, and Baxian is like, come on, what you doing?
Let's go.
Get up, let's go.
Do it.
And there's a couple times that Hunt is really like, I don't know. Or that he makes Baxian chew off Rune's hand instead because he won't do it himself or whatever. Because I don't know. He just seems like he's being such a little baby the whole time. And he's this big bad son of hell. And I did not like, I felt like he was such a baby.
Yes, I felt that way too. And like, I can understand if he's like hesitant because he's like, oh, I really don't want to be put in that situation again. But like, he literally is hesitant about every single action and situation that he's in, that I was just like, again, who are you? Like, this is not the Hunt Athlar that we knew in the first and the second books. And I just kept being like, is this real? Is this what's happening? This is what this book is going to be? Any other like general thoughts about Hunt?
Just maybe about one more piece about Bryce and Hunt's relationship. Bryce gets so upset that Hunt says he'll support her, but she's basically like, oh, that's not enough. Yeah. What did you think about that side of it? Because it did feel like the whole time you had mentioned it as feeling like they weren't that into each other.
Yes.
And I more felt like Bryce was expecting Hunt to be at the same level he was in the other books, and he wasn't.
Yeah.
And she was like, hey, that's what I was expecting out of this. That's what I want. I don't want whatever this is. So I'm just curious what you thought of that.
But I feel like her expectation was also really high. She was like, all or nothing. You can either give me everything and you can follow everything that I say or do, or it's nothing, or I don't want you a part of this at all. And when I read that, I was like, that's not how relationships work. Like, there's some give and take. And if he's being vulnerable and being like, hey, I'm a little like apprehensive about doing this, and she's like, no, it's all or nothing. To me, that was like, okay, Bryce, like sit on your high horse even higher. Like, I didn't love that, which was so unfortunate.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Oh man. And kind of with them too, when Bryce returns to Midgard and she goes straight to her dad instead of Hunt. I know she gives a little bit of like a rationale of saying, oh, well, I assumed he was still in the Asteri dungeons and that would have been too dangerous or whatever. Did you think that was a good enough reason to not go to him and to instead go to her dad?
Like, no, I feel like, granted, she had information she wanted to learn from him, whatever. But like, that would not be my first like action after I've been gone. I'd be like, you know what the situation looked like when you left, and I would want to make sure that my mate was okay.
I don't think it would have been any of the other SJM mates move either. That's the thing. Right. I imagine Aelin and Rowan. Are you kidding me? I can't imagine either of them doing that. No. Reese and Farah.
Nope.
Cassian and Nesta. Not. Like, I don't see any of them making the choice that she did. And every relationship is different, but we've seen it so similar so many times that this just felt like very different. And I think it might be for a reason. I know. I'm hoping that it's intentional. I know. And it's funny because we kind of have talked about with the other episodes that like we're unsure if Bryce and Hunt are true mates like other mates are. And I know she has said that they are in interviews. But it still doesn't feel like it. It doesn't feel like it. I agree. I totally agree. But some other characters from the book that I just did not give a fuck about were Ethan and Tharian. Almost the entire time. Tharian was useless and flip-floppy the whole time. Yeah, the entire time. And he made these impulsive decisions that had me yelling into my book, what the hell are you doing? Yeah. Tharian was extreme. I did not want to read any of his POVs. I didn't either. I found him so dumb. I don't know. Yes, me too. I did not care about that. And then I get that Ethan was supposed to be going through this whole track of getting over himself and knowing that he was supposed to be prime or whatever. But oh my God, it was so dragged out. It was so dragged out. And I was it was clear from the beginning when he was having, before he even fought Sigrid in the meat market.
Yeah.
Even before then, it was clear that he should have been challenging for that position. He shouldn't be pushing up this other person. And then he keeps doing all these things to try and bring her back. And he's stressing himself over this. Oh, well, what else could we do? I don't know. Stand up yourself, dude. I think it's pretty obvious.
Thank you. And he kept making wrong decision after wrong decision after wrong decision and putting everybody into this position where it's just like, again, I was like looking at him in this book and I was like, what are you doing?
And then he stays back when everybody else is going with Bryce to try and literally save the world.
Yes.
And he stays back because
I gotta do this for my own pride.
It's more important to just deal with the wolves.
What?
I have a responsibility to them. What about to the whole world?
Exactly.
How were just the wolves by themselves more important than the whole world?
Yes.
I don't know. Did not see that logic.
I didn't either. I literally didn't see it at all. And it made me mad. It just made me mad.
Honestly, another thing that kind of made me mad felt like it didn't quite make sense thing.
What was it?
Rhysand comes up a couple times in this book. And every time we've seen Rhys move really fast. Yes. We know he can winnow really fast. We know he can do all these things, right? And there were multiple times when Bryce is talking to Nesta when they're in Prythian and she's like, oh, the darkness is coming, better talk faster. But they have enough time for like soft goodbyes or for, whatever, all these discussions and stuff. And it felt like when you're playing with a toddler, you're like, I'm going to get you. I'm going to get you. And like, that's what it felt like Rhys was doing. Like he wasn't really trying to get there. He was just kind of trying to look scary in the background.
Yes.
That was so dumb to me.
Yes. I thought it was hilarious. Because I pictured it as this dark storm cloud like coming in and it would just like get a little bigger and bigger and they're like, oh, we gotta run. Like, what?
Stupid.
I know. Well, and then first it was like it just made me think like Rhys also has that kind of power too. Like we have never seen him do that before.
Do what? Darkness?
Yeah, like the slow winnowing in like that. So you're like causing darkness because he's not physically there. So like he's causing darkness elsewhere.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of saw it as his shadows just being a little bit in front of him.
Yeah, I don't think he has the shadows though.
Yeah, he does. Doesn't he?
Like
darkness. Well, it's like different than Az's shadows, but. I mean, he's like me. Remember the darkness in the room, but he's done with Feyre before. He definitely controls some form of like darkness. It's not the same type of shadows. But,
right. But like when he's elsewhere. So like,
he was on his way. I saw it as like they were in front of him. That was how I saw it.
I guess we've never seen him do that before. So that was weird to me.
Yeah.
But
I don't
know. Maybe it's literally nothing, but I was just like, that doesn't seem like the Rhysand that we know.
Yeah. I just thought it was lame.
Yeah, I did too.
Either be a badass and be there and scare her away or don't. But that.
Yeah.
Ooh,
I know.
Ooh, so spooky.
I know.
So lame.
It was so odd. I know.
I did like Nesta and Bryce's interaction though.
I did too.
I thought that dynamic was cool of seeing, I don't know. We don't see Nesta from that light very often without the taint of what people know about her on there. And it was cool to see them have so much respect for each other.
Yeah, I really liked that. I liked that a lot. Do we want to talk about some theories that we maybe proved and some things that we had already guessed and they ended up being true or incorrect? Yeah. One of the things that you caught on to pretty quickly was that the world of Crescent City is the missing dust court. And we find that out in the first part, which was really awesome.
Yep. And that it is at the prison.
Yes.
That is the island that used to be the dust court.
Which was so cool. That was a really fun theory that I liked.
Yeah.
See, because when the theories were proved, I liked that.
Oh, did you? Good.
Yes. I was like, oh my gosh, we guessed that. Like, that to me, that was exciting.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Good.
Mm-hmm. And so then another theory is that the Star Sword is the fourth object of the Dread Trove.
Yes, that it is part of that. They had that confirmed too.
Mm-hmm. And I thought it was really interesting that even though the Star Sword is, Truth Teller is not, but they clearly have a relationship.
Yeah. And I can wait to talk about Truth Teller until later, but I had some interesting thoughts on that too.
Yeah.
Another thing we had confirmed was that Nesta's like star on her back from the bargain is the same like shape and everything as Bryce's star that's on her chest. So that we had talked about being like, oh, isn't that interesting that they're the same shape?
I know.
So
yeah, I thought that was really cool. Cannot wait to see how that will turn out.
Mm-hmm.
And then that Bryce was leveled up in Prithian. That was really cool.
By
Asria.
And you guessed that. You guessed that it was going to be Az that would power her up. Yep.
And one of the things that we had kind of just like giggly talked about was like Asriel being Bryce's mate instead of Hunt's.
Yeah.
I liked their relationship, but like it kind of disproved that a little bit.
I agree. Me. I don't see that at all anymore. Yeah.
They like didn't really have that much of a relationship.
Yeah, they didn't. Well, none of their interactions even really were like in any way flirty. No. Like, oh, he's so pretty. I don't know.
Exactly. And then one of the other theories that we had talked about that was kind of we thought was a stretch, but it actually ended up being true, was that Lydia is a descendant of Aelin.
Yeah, I know. That was kind of cool to see that confirmed. Oh. I think there was only really small pieces of Throne of Glass in there. Yeah. Kind of like that. I also noticed the hawk shifter part of it for the hawk. Mm-hmm. Do you think he actually is a Rowan descendant then?
I hope not.
I know, me either, but it kind of goes both ways, right?
Yeah,
if we're going to say that she's a descendant. But I think her flame and everything was probably supposed to be different. So more like Aelin.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think it'll be fun once we get into like part 2 and part 3.
Yeah, to, like, dive into that for sure.
But that was such a fun theory.
Yeah.
Was there anything you could think of off the top of your head that we had theorized that was just totally wrong?
Ooh. Oh, I had theorized that Syrinx was going to because he can travel between places and unlock doors and stuff. I thought he was going to be important in this one in helping save Rune and Baxian and Hunt.
Yeah.
And he was nowhere to be found the whole time.
Right.
That was a character that did not matter. And there's so much in the first Crescent City about, oh, look at what he can do. And he didn't do anything at all. Literally wasn't even there.
I know. You know who else was like completely non-existent? Fury.
Yeah, Fury and June were still kind of in the background. Yeah. I thought we were going to learn more about Fury in this one. We did not at all.
Me too. I was so ready for it, and we just didn't.
Yeah,
it was such a bummer. I was like, what the heck?
Another thing that we were right about is Rhysand being descended from like Thea, not whole family bit. We did confirm that.
We did. I still have my theories.
Yeah.
But we'll get there.
Yep. Nice.
I know. One of the things that happened at the end of Crescent City 2 that I feel like really just made like no difference whatsoever. So remember just like the last lines of Hunt's interactions when Hunt knew nothing at all? He knew everything. What was that supposed to be? I don't know what that was
about.
No, because he comes in and like he clearly knew who Bryce was. He clearly knew where he was. Like, what did that even mean?
Maybe just that he passed out. Maybe it was just supposed to mean that. But I read way more into that too. I thought he was losing all his memories.
Yes.
Which now that you say that, it's kind of lame. Like, that nothing happened with that.
Yeah. So I don't know. I just felt like that like was like a road to nowhere. So this was just kind of a general overview of everything. We will get into each of the parts for all of our House of Flame and Shadow. And
talk about some more specific things that are happening and our thoughts on them in the upcoming couple episodes. So
catch us next week for that.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.